Get a good gander at that face, Danny?
Yes, Harry, I did.
I had done Eaten Alive, which was at that time called Death Trap still. They hadn't had that legal conflict with the Broadway play. And yeah, I'd done the Tobe Hooper movie, and that was it. And I was actually part of the sort of renaissance in the early 70s, Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider and all of that stuff. But after Jaws, you know, everything changed in Hollywood. So the sort of cachet I had with those people, with the sort of renaissance of the Hollywood independent, that kind of went away now, and we were all sort of juggling. And I sort of found myself guest starring in a low point in American television in the late 70s and early 80s.
Fancy salary the city of Potter's Bluff pays you and the amount of money the state spent getting you educated, you ought to be able to find some clues.
I think my involvement with Dead and Buried began on just a traditional actor's a go-see interview. And I think they were matching up faces. They sort of wanted, they kind of wanted this sort of Edward Hopper zombie, you know, sort of timeless town folk look to the faces, and they went with some classic looks, like faces like mine. You know, I kind of could be construed as a period face. Barry Corbin, who went on to do Northern Exposure, and Uncle Bob and Urban Cowboy, just really great sort of bizarre American folk faces, you know, and I think that's why I got thrown in it. I think I was up for a couple of parts. They were juggling the faces and the look for the sort of small town.
Don't be riding Danny here too hard. He's apt to leave this town. We're lucky to have him.
And also, I remember when I went on that interview, seeing a lot of really familiar, terrific character actors showed up. I actually knew Lisa Blount from a Hollywood bar we used to all hang out at with Martin Sheen and Nick Nolte and everybody down in a neighborhood in West Hollywood. So I kind of recognized it was a good crew of people. And I'd heard Jack Albertson was going to do it, and I never thought of Jack Albertson as being, you know, just Chico and the Man. I knew him from The Subject Was Roses, and the Sunshine Boys. I had seen him on Broadway do The Sunshine Boys, which was an extraordinary performance. So I was anxious, you know, to get a chance to work with Jack. We shot Dead and Buried in this idyllic community in Northern California called Mendocino. I believe at one point it was a whaling village, and it looks like, you know, you've been dropped down in a time machine in the 40s. And we just sort of took over the town for about 8 weeks. I think they actually shot East of Eden in this town of Mendocino as well. So it's almost like every 5 to 8 years they shoot some classic film there or some little horror film there. And I think they kind of depend on that, you know, because it's a lot of the population when we were working up there were sort of over the hill or past their prime, semi-retired rock stars from the San Francisco sort of rock renaissance of the mid-60s. And they had all, you know, fled the city to live in the country and sort of, you know, bought up there when the buying was good and got out when the getting was good. And but it's very foggy up there, which looks great on film, but it's very foggy and damp all the time. So they kind of liked having, you know, a little bit of Hollywood up there to spice things up, I think.
Danny, Harry.
Yeah, Harry?
Listen, I just pulled a late model Ford out of the water down by the South Beach.
Yeah?
Here she come off the bluff.
Off the... Oh, no. Is there anybody in it?
Nope. Just a kid's toy airplane.
It was cold. The shoot was very cold. I remember being damp a lot. The fog up there, it's almost like leaving your sweater out all night and then putting it on with it when it has dew on it or something like that. But everybody got along great, and it was such a beautiful place to work. I mean, it was fun working the day stuff. Nights are kind of miserable and damp, and I think we had some rain too, as I remember. A couple people had colds. I think Lisa Blount, who played the sort of a death nurse. I don't know how else to describe her. I think Lisa caught a pretty bad cold at one time. I think we worked around her a little bit.
Hi. I'm so glad to see that you're feeling better.
And I think I had a kind of a crush on Lisa, because Lisa had this beautiful skin anyway, and she's this real sexy gal, but they had this incredibly subtle white base on Lisa Blount for that movie.
Do I look good to you, Freddie?
You look wonderful.
As I said, I guess I like to refer to her as the death nurse. But she was so cold and beautiful. And it was almost that kind of gothic eroticism that was later exploited in that sort of Susie and the Banshees, neo-punk, goth, gloom and doom rock and roll period of time in London and in the urban areas in the States. And it's still around, but it was just sort of the first time I had ever sort of encountered that. And it really is, kind of erotic and sexy when you're around it. And Lisa's so sexy anyway. We all sort of had this mild fantasy going because we never sort of had to confront that before. I don't know. It had awakened some kind of latent vampire horniness in all of us or something.
You bring me a body that smells like burnt steak. You force me to keep it till it begins to rot, and then you have the nerve to tell me that I make you sick.
I love the Jack Albertson character. I think is a true original. I mean, there's a franchise character. I mean, if he lived, I mean, the dead coroner, the coroner of the dead. I mean, tooling around in this Cadillac hearse, which I just thought was this great image, with his big band music playing, which is really cool and specific and different and original. I mean, I just love that idea. And him being in this sort of, oldie but goodie, Benny Goodman time warp, I just think it's this great, wonderful, eccentric character. When you're an actor, I'm getting on now. I'm playing, professors and I play mad scientists now and fathers and things like that. But when I read a script, I still just look for the best part always. I forget, that I'm in my 50s now and I can't play the young lead or something. And I remember reading Dead and Buried the first time and just saying, God, I wish I could play that part, the coroner, because it's just such a great, it's like it's in that tradition of Vincent Price or Christopher Lee or any of those guys. And by casting Jack Albertson, which is against type, but you've got the cavernous, he's thin and he's got the cavernous face, and you've also got the height because he's a tall guy. You still do deliver that sort of great, you deliver the goods,
Look at this. Look at the work I've done. This is an art, and I am the artist.
They gave Stan Winston this old church, to do the makeup with his crew and everything. I mean, Stan was a kid then. This was real early Stan. And he had an assistant then. And, I've asked this guy's name over the years from all the famous people I've worked with, whether it's Kevin Yeager or Steve Johnson or David Miller, all the famous effects guys that I've had the privilege of working for in Phantom of the Opera and Nightmare on Elm Street. And they always tell me, they all know this guy. He's some famous sergeant at arms with the Stan Winston shop, and he may have gone off on his own by now, but he was this big, giant bearded guy. He looked like a lumberjack. And that guy had this unbelievably brilliant assembly line worked out for the zombie makeups. And we would go from chair to chair and sort of get the different prosthetic pieces on. And then we would go with a particular makeup artist every time who would do detail on us. And they even knew if we were going to be doing close-ups that day, if we were just going to kind of be background. But that was my first experience with any kind of effects makeup, and I was absolutely amazed by the efficiency of it. I remember we were right near a graveyard in this old either church or schoolroom, and they had taken over the whole place for the makeup room. What I used on the set as sort of a zombie method instruction, I remember having read Salem's Lot, the Stephen King, and there's this great thing in that book where the vampires, or the people that have been infected in Salem's Lot, they start disappearing, and the fish out of water, the New York Jewish intelligentsia who's been looking for antiques in this village, when they start realizing this, and they're down there, they're the summer people or whatever you want to call them. I think at one point they find the people. They're like slugs. They like burrow underneath the houses in that crawl space beneath houses in the cold, damp mud with the spiders and the rats and the mice, and they like it down there because they're halfway to being vampires, and that's sort of like their coffin. And so I sort of remembered that. I had just read Salem's Lot a couple of years earlier, and I remembered that, and that's what I used. And I think I told Gary, I sort of imagined that, instead of just sort of like doing zombie acting, I sort of just imagined us like maybe our metabolism and our blood flow and everything was sort of like, on a retarded speed, that we were all slowed down a bit and more or less going through the motions of life.
You can have anything you want for dinner. You don't mind fixing it yourself. But I'll fix it for you.
She's
You'll
dead.
have a choice between minute steak.
Baby, please die.
She's dead.
I saw the film when it was released down in Venice, I think it went straight to the neighborhoods. It wasn't like a big Westwood opening, you know.
Smile.
And the audience loved it. I saw it the first week it opened down there, and the audience really seemed to like it because it was really different.
Welcome to Potter's Bluff.
Well, you know, when I look back on my career now, it's hard. I've done some movies that I thought were going to be great, and they turned out terrible. And I've done movies that I never suspected would be turned into cult films or classics. Big Wednesday, when I did it, you know, they had cut some great stuff out of that movie, and there had been some problems, and there was some detail in it I thought wasn't up to snuff. Now that movie, you know, it really stands the test of time, and you never know. So I remember the process. When I look back on films, I remember the making of them and the friends I made, or lasting relationships, or the careers of people that I worked with who I thought then were great, and they went on to do other great things. Lisa Blount doing Officer and a Gentleman, obviously Barry Corbin, you know, Gary Sherman and Stephen Poster, you know, have their fingers in so many different pies over the years, and terrific projects. So I sort of look back on Dead and Buried that way. It was just such a great original script. This strange, you know, sort of small town zombies. I just love that. And I also think it's a true original. The original poster for Dead and Buried, which is this great graphic of this face coming up through cracked earth, you know, and I had the original poster for that, and it's really a beautiful poster design. I'm still on the hunt for it, so anybody finds one, I'll buy it.